Hey everyone, welcome back to the Coach Corner here on the NAI Women's Volleyball page. I'm excited to bring you episode 5 of the segment where we highlight coaches and programs across the NAI that make women's volleyball so unique. Today we're joined by Coach Cory Cahill, who's the head coach at McPherson College. He's entering his 7th season at the helm. During his tenure, Coach Cahill has compiled 120 wins with 61 losses. In the KCAC, he's also compiled 63 wins and 22 losses. In 2023, with some injuries, coach still battled, and they ended up fourth in the conference. Last season, they had a phenomenal year, going 30-7 with 12-1 in the KCAC first rounds. They hosted Columbia with the dominant sweep. They've also had some back-to-back national tournament appearances. Coach, that's just a little bit before we dive in, but how are things going out there? How are you doing?
They're going good, man. Can't complain. Just gearing up for the season and prepping and planning, and you know how it goes. Yeah, excited to get going. And I think it's like 17 days till the girls get here, so I'm pumped up. I'm excited to go.
For sure. You took over the program in 2019. You made an immediate impact. You led the team to the KCAC tournament semifinals before falling. But you guys have battled and competed every year for the title at the KCAC, which is a pretty dominant conference. But what are the key factors that you hold to your program that has had some growth over the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say the biggest factor has just been the growth in our culture and who we are. You know, when I first took over the program, it was trying to recreate it, trying to make it my own, right? And so it's one of those things where I've grown a lot as a head coach, and I've changed a lot of how I look at things. My perspective has changed a lot. How I approach not only the game of volleyball, but coaching and building up these young women in the way that we do. I think that that's probably been the biggest key factor is that our intentionality of who we are and the accountability within the program where the girls are leading that culture, where I'm not having to hold them accountable because they hold each other accountable. It's just taken time to get there. Yeah, I think that this past season, I think that we really got there. Every year it's a little bit different, but I'm hoping that we can kind of continue that trend.
For sure. In 2024, you guys hit the 30 win mark. What do you think clicked for your team that made you guys go on that run?
It was just buy-in. It was a season that was really special to be a part of. There was no lack of adversity. We went through a lot of adversity throughout the season. I scheduled tough to try to push us and try to prepare us. And we just there was never a moment that they stopped playing for each other. And there was never a moment that they didn't believe that they could do it. We had some tough 5-set losses to Oklahoma Wesleyan and some big moments that didn't go our way. We just kept going. Losing to Nelson at home was a really tough one for us. That helped shape us moving forward from that loss to then a huge streak because we just kind of, again, just kept pushing. They just knew that it was about each other and it was about playing for each other, and it was really special.
A lot of player-led teams are very strong because it's on the court where it's being player-led. It's not so much from the bench. Of course, you're leading the team as well, but some player-led is definitely very, very important. After a strong finish in 2024, what are the goals and expectations heading into the 2025 season?
I say every year it's one of those things where I just want to get a little bit better, right? And whether that be culturally, whether that be, in the win-loss column, whether that be anywhere that we can find a way to just keep raising the bar, I'm okay with it. I mean, I think it would be crazy for me to go in and expect the exact same season, finishing, number 12 in the country and being in, regular season co-champs and all those things. Like, yeah, of course, I'd love that to happen. I'd love for us to be able to say that we did it again. But for me, as long as we're moving the needle in the right direction, and as long as we're seeing the growth within our program, then I'm fine with it. So we'll see where the chips fall. Not necessarily just one specific goal or dream, but just a matter of can we continue to grow the way we've grown over the past 6, 7 years I've been here. And if we can keep moving that needle, then hopefully the wins and those things will take care of themselves. But I think that that's probably the biggest thing is just to continue to move the needle, especially as people. And I think that that's the key factor, 100%.
For sure. You talked a little bit about scheduling tough. You start out at the Sioux Line Invitational. You got some GPAC opponents that are pretty tough. You got Dakota Wesleyan, Morningside, and Northwestern. Northwestern's been a perennial powerhouse that makes deep runs into Sioux City. And Dakota Wesleyan and Morningside are strong and very well coached. You wrap up the stretch with Rocky Mountain with a head coach who's going on year two, I believe. How does this roster compete to previous years? And, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it's scheduling tough. I mean, we have some perennial powerhouses on the schedule throughout the entire year. The KCAC's only gotten better. So competing against those teams is really important to me. Regardless of where our roster is going to be, I schedule tough. I want to challenge us. I want to see where we're at. I tell the girls every year, I don't schedule for wins. I schedule for competition.
Yep.
And so we'll see how it shapes up. I'll never know until they get here. I never know until they arrive, and how do we gel and how do we look and what do we need. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't confident. I'm very excited and I'm very, very confident with the group that we have returning. I brought in some big transfers in the spring that I think are going to be great. That brings some experience and some more competitiveness. We have some great freshmen, a couple of transfers coming in the fall still.
Mhm.
So we have some pieces to change and replace. We graduated 13 kids
Yep.
last year, which is a huge class. Our entire setting core is going to be totally different. But we have some big pieces returning too. So I think I think that we are set up to be as successful as they choose to be, as long as they continue to play for each other. And I think if that's the case, then I think that we have a chance to do some really amazing things based on the kids and the talent that we have. It's a matter of, will it all come together? So, yeah, I'm excited.
You touched on a little bit. I mean, you graduated 13, but you bring back a solid core. You have some incoming transfers and freshmen. But what's been the focus this spring and summer as you gear up for the fall?
Yeah, so I mean, this spring was really a time to kind of grow and change, and not only as individuals but a team, because there's a lot of pieces to fill. There's a lot of things to figure out going into this spring, and then of course going into this fall. So bringing in the four new players in the spring, and then getting them acclimated not only to the program but to our culture and who we are,
Mhm.
where they fit in the puzzle and how they're going to fit moving forward, as well as our girls kind of finding that new identity, because graduating such a big class, a lot of our culture was driven by that senior class. And so now it's this new group, and what's our vision and what do we want to accomplish? And at the end of the spring, our returning group came up with the vision of commit to the climb together. And so that's what they want to believe in, and they want to commit to the climb. And that doesn't necessarily mean wins and championships and all of those, but they want to commit to who we are. They want to commit to being the best teammates, being the best humans, being the best people who play volleyball, not just volleyball players. And so I think that if we do commit to the climb together, I think that if they do accomplish that vision, that's when we're going to see that success. So that was a big, big focus this spring, is cultivating that leadership, making sure that we're prepared for the next steps this coming fall, because we are going to have such a new group. So I think that we made the right steps, we prepared the right way. So I think that we're ready to go.
You talk about commit to the climb. You guys are not only good on the court, but you guys are good in the classroom as well. McPherson, you guys had honor roll in 2019, 2020, and 2024. The ABCA honor roll awards. That's very big. It speaks volumes. Yeah, you can be an athlete that's killing it on the court, but you also got to be able to kick it in the classroom and make sure that you're getting those good grades. How important is academic excellence in the program?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, we're small college athletics, right? I mean, it's the NAI. It's we're not going to play professionally after this most of the time. So, we've got to really make sure we're prepping these kids for life after volleyball, and again, that's getting them to understand that it's not only volleyball. Like, they're not volleyball players; they're people who play volleyball, and getting them to understand that distinction is really important in our program. And that's what I think helps them move on past. When volleyball's done, who are you?
Yeah.
And so part of that is being disciplined in the classroom and making sure that we're getting the job done academically. For the past 7 years I've been here, we haven't not hit the ABCA academic award. We've always gotten that. I think it's 9 years straight for the program in general, but it's a 9 year streak, 7 of them since I've been here. And then 3 of those years, we've gotten the honor roll. So yeah, really something that we're proud of, something that we push for. We try to recruit the right kids that are already great students, and I think that that really aids in our ability to make sure they continue to be successful. We have some great students that come in and they just do it because they know that that's the expectation. So yeah, it's a big deal for us.
Culture sounds very rich there. We talked about the program a little bit. Let's talk about you as a coach, your philosophy. Every coach has their non-negotiables, their rules or core values that they stand by. What are some of your non-negotiables or core values that you push on the team to have, no matter where you're first man or last man on the roster? What are some of those?
Yeah, so touch on some of them. I mean, we have 5 pillars in our program.
Okay.
Our 5 pillars are we have 5 core rules in our program that are non-negotiable rules. They're simple, they're easy, such as be on time, right? Very simple rule, something that is going to help them in life. Be positive, very simple rule. And then probably my favorite rule of the 5 is no cussing, no complaining. We call it no C squared. So we don't cuss in our program. We don't drop bombs in our program. We don't complain in our program. We find solutions.
Hmm.
So those are a few of the 5. Um, our team vision every year that gets created, that's one of our pillars. We as a coaching staff typically create that pillar in the spring, and then typically our returning group creates that vision for the fall.
Hmm.
And so we kind of have that cycle going. Commit to the climb together this year is our vision for the fall. We have our 8 core values, which we call the MAC 8, which are probably one of the key parts of who we are. It's 8 words, 8 quotes, 8 authors that they have to memorize. It has to be a part of who they are. Those words include grateful, selfless, positive, focus, discipline. I mean, pretty common words in the athletic realm, but it's things that we want to live by,
Hmm.
not only on the court but off the court. So much so that our girls grade each other on those values. We grade each other after preseason, we grade each other midseason, we grade each other postseason. An anonymous grade where us as coaches get to see how they're grading each other. Are they living those values on and off the court? And if they are, fantastic. It's a 5 point grading scale. We want to be above a 4 at all times in all of our values. And when girls fall below the accepted standard, we have meetings. We talk about strategies. How can we make our teammates see that you are selfless, that you are grateful? What are you doing? What are you not doing? And so just ways to make sure that we're, again, building them up as people. And then we have 2 equations that we really hold dear. One is person over player, which I kind of touched on, that you're a person first. You're not a volleyball player. You're a person who plays volleyball. And that's that distinction that we try to really hit hard. And then the second equation is CPR. So I'm sure you've heard the concept. You got to follow the process to get to the result, right? I'm a big believer that equation's flawed. I don't think that it's about the process. I think it's about the character of the people driving the process.
Hmm.
So C, character drives process, P drives result, R. So if we have a perfect process, but we have bad people driving that perfect process, they're going to cheat, they're going to cut corners, they're not going to do things the right way.
Hmm.
So that's why in our program, we focus on the character side. Because if we have the right people driving our process, it's going to succeed and we're going to get the results that we want. And so those are our 5 pillars that we're really proud of. And I would say that those are probably my non-negotiables that we have a culture boot camp we're going through right now with our incoming kids that are going over those 5 pillars. So when they get here day one, they know everything about who we are. At the end of our first team meeting in preseason, they have to take a test on our 5 pillars. And if they don't pass that test, they don't practice day one of practice. They got to sit out the whole day and retake that test. If they don't pass again, they sit out the whole second day and retake that test. I'll tell you right now, nobody's ever failed.
No
But it's
doubt.
just one of those things where that's important to us. That's who we are, and that's who we want to be. So just things like that, just the intentionality of who we are, I think is probably my biggest non-negotiable.
Being intentional sounds what it's like, and you guys live and breathe that culture. And I think they're coming there to play volleyball, so I'm sure they're going to pass those tests. So let's hope nobody fails this upcoming class. But
Yeah.
looking at your roster, you got players from all over the states, internationals as well. When it comes to recruiting, what's your top priority, but also what kind of player thrives in your system?
Top priority is people. Like when I'm recruiting, if I see a kid eye roll a teammate, they're off my list.
Hmm.
If I see a kid, yelling at their parents about, anything, oh, why didn't you fill my water bottle up? Or like just
Hmm.
those types of attitudes,
Hmm.
I cross them quick. Like we're not gonna try to help change that person. We need to find the right people. And so that's the number one thing for me is finding really great humans. When we're talking to recruits, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about who we are, who we want to be. We're not talking about the success of the program. We're not talking about the wins, the championships, the national tournaments. We're talking about our culture and who we are, and that's kind of what guides our recruiting. Um, and so I think that that's probably the top priority for me from the volleyball perspective. I just want adaptability. I want kids that are have the ability to play in multiple positions. I love multi-sport athletes. Kids that are playing multiple sports, I think, is huge. I think that it's really beneficial to their growth and development.
Yep.
Um, you know, I talk a lot like we don't just train you as an outside. We train you as a volleyball player. We don't train you as a middle. We train you as a volleyball player. Like my middles will pass and serve receive during practice. Like we'll do things to train all of our players to be the best volleyball player, not just the best middle. Like I want them to know all parts of the game. And so it's just those are the things that we look for in recruits too. Is just that ability to do more than just the one thing. I think is big.
I think a lot of people look past those little things. The small things is what really pays. Everybody's looking. So it's very important that you follow those small things like that. Talking a little bit about last season, you guys had a great year, 30-7, tournament runner-ups, the KCAC. What were some of your favorite moments from last season?
Oh man, there's a lot of them. I think the two that pop to my mind the most is probably the Columbia win at home. I
Yeah.
think was awesome because we did lose to them earlier in the season at a neutral site, and it was one of those losses that we knew we shouldn't have lost. That we really felt strongly that we should have had that game, and we let it slip away from us. Um, and so getting them at home for the opening round and then sweeping them,
Yeah,
a very strong team. It was a lot of fun. I think in that first set we were down like 23-16 in that first set against Columbia at home for the national tournament opening round, and coming back and winning that first set and then cruising the next two. It just showed a lot about who we were at that time. And then the last game of the season against Oklahoma Wesleyan was probably the top moment of the season. We had I think 6 of the past 7 games we played them have been 5-set matches. They have the edge on us. We've lost and won so many 2-point sets. I mean, extra points, 2 points, 15, 13, 16, 14 in the fifth. Like it just never stops, which is an awesome, awesome thing to play in. But the last 2 times before the national tournament, we came out on the losing end. So getting there at the national tournament, getting them in pool, which obviously isn't ideal to have a conference opponent in your pool, but then having the ability to go out on top and win that match when it mattered most, I think was pretty special. Going into that match, I told my wife, if we win the first set, we're winning the match,
hmm
and won the first set and we won the match. So I just knew that we needed to just come out and be able to get that first set for us to really have the confidence. And it was awesome, especially after coming off of a really tough loss to St. Thomas the night before, or the night, yeah, I think it was the night before. So to come back and win that was awesome. So yeah, those were probably my top moments last year.
for sure. And then touching on your playing journey, you played at Hannibal Grange, and then after that, you went to Cali or California to pursue a career in law enforcement, and then you moved to Ohio. You were at Lord's. You were in the men's and women's program. You earned some recognition there. What what set the tone where you're like, I want to get into this, and this is what I want to do? What was that defining moment?
Yeah, so like I was all in on getting into law enforcement out in California. I graduated with my criminal justice degree. I had moved out to California. That's where my fiance at the time, my wife now, is from. And so I went out there. I was testing for every department and every single. I mean, every single time I'd make it to the very end. And the chief, I'd have a chief interview, and they'd say, you need more life experience because I'm fresh out of college. You need more life experience. I was like, well, what does that mean? So I started doing different things, and I started trying to become, I was an animal cop at one point for Orange County. I was a car salesman. I did all these different things. And then I randomly saw Pacifica High School was hiring a head volleyball coach, and I was like, I love volleyball. Why not? Let's try it. I got it. And I just had a blast. Like, I really loved doing it. And I was like, this is interesting. And then I actually got connected with Long Beach State, their men's coach, Alan Knipe. And he really helped me through finding the next step. And his former player, Greg Wrights, who's the head coach at Lourdes, was reached out to Alan and said, "Hey, like, do you know anyone?" And he threw my name out there, and then the rest is history. It was out at Lourdes for the time, and then got here. So it just kind of happened. And so couldn't be happier that it did. I think that I have the best job on the planet. I love going to work every day. I love what I do, and so yeah, it wasn't something that was planned, but I'm very happy that it worked out.
No doubt. Well, Coach, it's been an honor having you on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to let us get to know about your program and the Bulldogs. But before we sign off, what's the best place to follow along, find you guys on socials? Just let us know.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. It was awesome to be on. I'm really glad that you're doing this for NAI women's volleyball. So fantastic. But to follow the Bulldogs, Instagram, Facebook, all your normal Twitter. We have handles on all of them. We typically stay pretty active. I'd say on Instagram probably the most. The girls made a TikTok last year. I think this year we might start getting more into the TikTok side of things. But yeah, so just all the general normal ones. But yeah, I'm Mac Bulldogs VB. So
Be sure to give you a follow, and we'll follow along this year. I'll definitely be there at the Siouxland Invitational. You guys are playing Dakota Wesleyan, so I'll be there for that. So hopefully we get to see a good game. But other than that, that wraps up episode 5 of the Coach's Corner. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like and subscribe. Let us know what coach you want on next. And thanks for watching, and we'll be here next time. Thanks.